I really, really loved my appearance with Dr. Ellen on Rock Your Midlife. She's wise and compassionate. She's got a compelling personal story. She gives her guests room to articulate themselves. I've been on a million podcasts, and this felt great. So thank you, Dr. Ellen.
You're so welcome. Welcome to the Rock Your Midlife podcast, your transformative sanctuary designed to guide you through self-discovery and provide the tools you need to find your purpose and navigate life authentically. Whether you want to optimize your health, boost your happiness, or deepen your self-love, this podcast is your ultimate toolkit. Hey, it's Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. I am thrilled that you are here today because we're talking all about love, love, love. I am such, an addict of love. I'm like addicted to that Netflix show. What is it called? Love at First Sight. And there's the one where they fall in love in the pods. And I just love a great love story. And I am so fortunate because I am writing an amazing love story with my Ken doll, my new man, who are actually almost on 4 years. And I'm here to say, if you're one of those women who've been like, there's no good men out there, they're all terrible, I'm never going to find love. Listen up, ladies, because we are talking with Evan Katz. He is the author of 4 books and has been featured in hundreds of media outlets since 2003. He is an amazing dating coach, and we're going to bring him on in a moment. And he's going to really teach you how to attract and select a quality partner. And I am living proof that it is possible. I was in a 25-year marriage. There was good there. We got 2 kids. There was a lot of good aspects to it, but really there were a lot of really hard aspects, and I couldn't truly be myself. There was just a lot of animosity in the relationship, a lot of criticism. It was hard, and I left, and it was truly one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. And I was really scared, like, would I meet someone else? And when I decided, I made a lot of mistakes. First, I will say I shacked up with Rebound Guy. Do not shack up with Rebound Guy. I did all the wrong things. You're supposed to wait like a year after divorce, and I didn't. But then I pulled myself together. I took some time. And when I decided to jump back into the dating pool, I really was doing it with a different lens. It wasn't about the sexual attraction, the kind of thing that we're taught, like in fairy tales and in media and movies, that it's supposed to be like love at first sight. I was like, you know what? I'm going to find someone who is in alignment with my core values, where I can totally be myself, somebody who is successful, right? So that I'm not always the one paying for things, and just made a list of what I was looking for. And the other thing that was really key for me was learning to love myself. I found self-compassion as part of my dissertation, and I had to study self-compassion and learn it, and became a self-compassion teacher. And I really feel that learning to love myself really attracted love in my life. And that's the first thing I want to share. I know Evan's going to share a lot more, but learning to love yourself is key. And also raising your vibration. I spent a lot of time during the pandemic visualizing dance, because for me, dance is a metaphor for being joyful. And I just saw myself dancing. And I really feel like I attracted Kenny because I was in this joyful energy. And our first date, the man shows up with 24 roses and a cooler filled with produce. And I had been like really wanting to join a community supported agriculture. My diet was good, but I wanted to eat even better, lots of organic. And this man is just, I never thought I would meet somebody who is more passionate about healthy living. And fast forward, we are totally in love. Everything is rocking. The attraction is there. We live half a year in a beautiful island on Vermont and half a year in Costa Rica, and just having a great time. So I'm here to say you can meet the love of your life. And I didn't meet Kenny till I think I was like 57, 58. So really, it is possible. There's great guys out there. And Evan is going to share his 20 years of wisdom with us right now. So you want to grab a pen and paper and write things down. So again, introducing dating coach Evan Katz. He is the author of 4 books and has been featured in hundreds of media outlets since 2003. His blog has over 35 million readers. His podcast has over 2.5 million downloads, and 13,000 women have taken the Love You, his video course that help smart, successful women find love. He is happily married and lives in Los Angeles. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Evan. I am thrilled to have you here.
I'm really glad to be here, Dr. Ellen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's first talk about why the heck has dating gotten more complicated than ever before? I know I'll just say my parents, they met at a Jewish dance, right? My mother got in the back with my father, back of a car, right? They went to the dance, and my mother's best friend was in the front seat with my father's best friend, and they were in the back. They met, they courted, they did their thing. They had 3 kids. This is the 50s, early 60s, and it seemed very simple. Why is it so complicated now?
Well, you've basically painted the picture yourself as to why it's more complicated. It's the paradox of choice. We now have infinite choices, and infinite choices don't always make us happier. And the apex of that is the dating app, where everybody's got access to the entire world on their phone, limitless opportunity, and everybody complains that they can't make a connection. It's built into the process that everybody's looking for the next best thing, so it's really hard to forge enough of a connection to focus on anybody. And we're very quick to dismiss people, which doesn't mean there aren't most people who do deserve dismissing. So we could say two things are true simultaneously. Yes, indeed, it's hard to find a quality relationship-oriented man that is attractive and can take care of you emotionally and help out financially. That is indeed true. It's just not all of the men. And that's what you're living proof of. So even if we could grant that, hey, let's say 90% of men are not worthy of being your partner, that means we're dealing with 10%, and we just have to find one out of those 10%, and we're in business.
Yeah, no, I think it's two things that you're touching on is that there's so many possibilities. Like, I used a boutique app called Spiritual Singles, which I found was really great quality guys. But there's like, so many things and so many men, and you can have so many different scenarios of what it would be like with this person, that person. And I think the other thing is our brains have really changed because of these phones. Got this phone constantly, we're constantly like pinging and scrolling, and we can't take the sort of the time to be mindful and give it more thought and attention.
Great, and it's a disservice to everybody, right? You talk to women and I talk to women, but men are suffering just as much. The amount that men get rejected online, go online. Think about the percentage of men when you say ick to most guys online. Well, that's just some regular guy who's trying to make a connection with someone, and you're saying no to. I said 90%. You probably think it's 99%. So think about the effort guys have to take just to get in the door with someone, to get someone's attention. And she's got 10 taller, richer, cuter guys that she's looking forward to. So that's the nature of dating. Everybody I want to date doesn't want me. Everybody who wants me, I don't want to date. And so we need to find some overlap in that Venn diagram. And that's where fixing your picker is the most important thing. It's not that it's not that there's not something to the idea of self-love, but I think the biggest problem most people have is their GPS for spouses is
Mm.
broken.
Yeah, don't rely on the picture. I have to say, Kenny had a horrible picture, but his profile was magnificent. Like everything had written, I was like, this guy is either full of BS or if he's for real, well, like sign me up. And he definitely was for real. So we have very similar clientele, smart, successful women. When it comes to the dating arena, what are the unique challenges of your population that you deal with?
Well, again, I think when you are a 90th percentile woman, your standards are going to be inherently higher. If your standards are inherently higher, it means there's a smaller database of people to choose from. If you are okay, theoretically, dating a guy who makes $35,000 a year, living in his hometown, with a 100 IQ, the average man, um, it won't be that hard to find someone. That's not my clients. And so if you are a college educated woman, maybe a master's degree or doctorate, own your own home, make six figures, that right there is just going to shrink your dating pool. And that's before we've talked about any other characteristics. That's just some basic external characteristics. We haven't gotten to the more important characteristics, which is how does he treat me and how do I feel? And how does he treat me? How do I feel? Are two things that very few people consider when they're dating.
Yeah, and this is the most important thing because I think with Kenny, everything's always been so easy. I think you say that when it's the right relationship, everything flows. Like we don't argue, we think the same, we're very similar in terms of our lifestyle habits, in terms of like how we feel about family. I think for me, that the big thing, and if you're listening, I think where you want to find someone where you can truly be yourself and have your freedom. Like my son just graduated from college and we went to Europe, and Kenny was like, this is great. Go do it. He wasn't like jealous or angry or why don't you take me? He's like, yeah, take your kid and go. This is like awesome for you. But I think the right guy, it will be very easy. But I'm curious, you say here that, there are some downsides to dating a man who is brilliant, wealthy, and handsome. I think a lot of, successful women want that. What are the downsides of Mr. Incredible?
Yeah, well, again, I'm certainly not going to judge anybody for being attracted to what they're attracted to. Just know that's who you've been choosing. So if you're single and you're listening, you don't need me to tell you the downsides of dating those guys, but I will. But if you're with a guy who is a self-made millionaire, well, he didn't become a self-made millionaire by loafing. He's probably a guy who's pretty intense, takes his work seriously, may take his work too seriously, spend more time there, less inclined to emotional connection, more likely to say, hey, when I took you on vacation, isn't that good enough? Here's a tennis bracelet. Isn't that good enough? Might not want to talk about your problems. He's the sun and he wants you to be the planet revolving around him. That's the problem with that guy who's on a business mission. And so he might be a good provider, but there's a lot of guys who are good providers who don't make for great husbands. They're just good providers. And we could go down the line. The guy who's the most brilliant guy you've ever met, well, it's wonderful to be with someone who's intellectually stimulating and you're fascinated by his every word. That guy can be arrogant. That guy could be stubborn. That guy could be a mansplaining blowhard. That guy could be dismissive of your opinions. That guy could be socially awkward because he's so darn smart. There's a downside to dating the most brilliant guy that you've probably seen before. And the same with the gorgeous guy who has women throw themselves at him. He might have underdeveloped other parts of his personality. He might be less empathetic. He might never have struggled or been bullied or ostracized or rejected, right? And so he might be a little more narcissistic than you might like. He might be a little less monogamous than you like. He's a guy who's in great demand and he's coasted on his looks, right? So those are all possibilities. Now, that doesn't mean that every cute guy is a piece of shit and every rich guy is run from him. There's characteristics where the good and the bad go together. And so we just have to bake that into the equation. You can't just say, I'm going to find the Top Chef supermodel Rhodes Scholar and he's going to come with no problems. I'll live happily ever after. You pivoted on the kind of man you were going for, and that got you happy. I pivoted after 300 dates in my, from 25 to 35. And I had to do something different to get a different result. So anything I'm sharing that sounds like he's telling me to settle, I'm not telling you to settle. I'm telling you there's a path to happiness that might be right under your nose that it's harder to see.
Yeah, and I think for me, that big shift was getting away from this love at first sight. Getting away from this idea that, you have to have that magnetic connection and thinking outside the box. And the thing that's really cool about my relation with Kenny is I just adore how he looks now. Like initially that looks wasn't my type, but now I'm just like, I just can't get enough of him. I just think he's just the cutest thing in the world. So how do women stop wasting time on the wrong men?
It's having the courage to call attention to the fact that you're misaligned early in the process. I think the problem is women, because they grew up in dysfunctional families, because they don't fully love themselves or set healthy boundaries or know what a healthy relationship looks and feels like, they're more likely to settle, not necessarily on height or weight or age or income, but they're going to settle on character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, character. They're going to settle on the most important things, right? And say, I could work with this, or this is as good as it gets, or I can't do any better, or at least he's cute, or at least he has a job, or at least he doesn't cheat on me. And we could rationalize. And all we know is you're not happy in the relationship. It's producing anxiety. So we try to pay attention to things really early on so you don't fall in love with someone who just doesn't have the capacity to be a good husband, despite the fact that he might look great on paper.
Yeah, and I love that too. You actually have the ability to not fall in love yet. And I know that was a big thing for me. It's like I was going to be sure that the person was right and in alignment with my core values, with, what I wanted for family, what I wanted my future to look like before I let myself fall in love. I think we're so after that feeling of being in love because, we read about it, we see it in the movies, there's all of these, reality TV shows, and we want that, right? We want that spark. I just feel like that's, that spark burns out. And then you wake up 3-4 months later and you're thinking, what did I do? I'm committed to this person who's not, I can't be myself around, is not making me happy.
And so the spark is a wonderful feeling, and it's sort of the broken clock being right twice a day. It's not that it can't happen. There are people who love at first sight and they're together for 35 years and it's a wonderful story. It's that if you're listening and you consider how many times have you had that feeling, the oh my God, you just know feeling. I had it like 3 or 4 times. All of them dumped me. So how accurate is the feeling? Right? If you're single and you're listening to this, you've had it before. It didn't work. And so all we're suggesting is not that you go your life without attraction or good sex. It's that if you've been relying on that as the arbiter of whether you're going to have a healthy relationship, that initial chemistry doesn't have any predictive record. Northwestern did a really great study that all the things that you're attracted to have almost a 0% correlation to a happy marriage, because a happy marriage has to do with how he treats you. And that has nothing to do with whether we both like hiking or we're both vegans. Even those are lovely and you need to have some stuff. Those are the things that we're using, especially on dating apps. We can't really tell how someone's going to treat you, whether he's going to listen to your emotional cues, whether he's going to help out with housework or child rearing. You can't tell any of it. And so that's the challenging part, is we are now reduced to photos and one line bios on dating apps and to try to find the most important person in our life. It's a really flawed medium.
So even though it's the medium that we have for the most part, so when you're working with your clients, what do you recommend they do to get that initial, to just even have that initial conversation, that initial date, like both from how they put their profile together to who they choose? What are the initial things if someone's listening right now and thinking, okay, so where do I even start? Because yeah, there are a million guys on this app and then there's 2 million on that app. I mean, I remember when I did, what is it called? Match. For some reason, I was a female looking for females and I couldn't change. And it was like, I was like, that was the universe saying, don't. Match was just too much for me. It wasn't working. And for me, the boutique one was great. But what do you recommend people do, both in terms of creating a profile, getting a picture, and then just getting through how do you find I don't know, the trees from the weeds, or I don't know quite the right metaphor, but how do you find your way through that jungle?
It overlays a lot on what I was sharing earlier, right? So if we understand that, hey, this batch of men, 45% of men are toxic narcissists, and these guys are uninspiring, boring, don't have their life together, we understand that there's a relatively narrow slice of guys who is your target audience. Now we just need to figure out how to navigate that. And so my signature course, Love You, we have literally a 6-month program. Week 7 is the one where we talk about online dating, and it is a lead generation tool. It's just a means of creating opportunity, however flawed it is, because that's where people are. So we have a system to help you market yourself, photos, profiles, how to flirt, the pace to which to move them from the dating site to email or phone call to the first date. So there's a whole screening system that takes all this fear and takes all the guesswork out of it, so that we can basically dial in a process where you can get online for a half hour a day, get yourself 1 date a week, and find someone to love in the next 6 months. And it's consistent. I have women in their 70s who are going out on, a couple dates a week who never thought they'd be able to do this. So, none of it's brain surgery. It's just having someone hold your hand through what is an intimidating and confusing process.
Yeah, it feels like it's necessary in this day and age. I mean, sometimes I'll tell my clients they're looking to either refer them to a coach, or they're like, I don't want to do the online thing. And I'll like join, go on Meetup, join someone, but then there's like creepy men, and it's difficult. So it's great that you're creating this, but you also say that it's not that you're attracting the wrong man, but you're accepting it. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I
A
mean,
lot of
it's
women are like, I always attract the wrong guys. Like women say that all
right.
the time. I attract losers, or he was great initially and then he cheated on me. But you say you accept it, not attract.
It's a slightly different frame for the same idea. So I attract the wrong men removes agency, right? It's like you're a magnet. These guys, these horrible men just come and stick to me, and I have no say in the process. And why does this keep happening? I think it's more appropriate to say you are attracted to the wrong men. That's more likely based on some childhood stuff, right? So I'm attracted to the wrong men. And then upon realizing they're the wrong man, double down on it. I can make this work. I could fix it. He could change, right? So that's the problem. You're basically saying, I'm willing to stay in a relationship where my emotional needs are not getting met. Where a stronger woman might just say, screw this guy, done. I'm out in 3 weeks instead of 3 months or 3 years.
Mm.
So lots of women are attracted to guys who don't make for good spouses. They have the courage to cut them off instead of staying. So that's what I mean by accept it, is you accept a lower standard than you deserve in a relationship that's not actually making you happy. And if a relationship's not making you happy, what is it for?
Yeah, that's so true. And so how do you, how do you figure out, like, do you have like a litmus test? So you decide like no for this one, yes for this one. I mean, so we're not using that sort of physical attraction and the sparks. And so what are we actually using to pick the right guy?
That's a really great question. Because people want shortcuts and people want heuristics. I've tried to create them because nobody knows what's the right answer. So based on whatever my experiences in dating, experiences in coaching over the past 20 years, for first dates, second dates, we give people three things to consider: comfort, fun, and attraction. Okay. So anytime someone's like, should I give him a shot? I don't know. People tell me I should give guys more of a chance. Well, if on a 1 to 10 scale, your attraction is a 2, you don't need to give him a chance. You're not doing anybody any favors. You're not doing him any favors. You're not doing you any favors. You don't have to talk yourself into it. Right. So a lot of women try to talk themselves into things. You do not need to do that. But that also goes for fun. If you're on the date and you're like, oh my God, let me look at my watch. When is tonight going to end? Don't see why you talk yourself into that either. Shouldn't have to do that. Finally, comfort is, can I be myself? Can I let down my guard? And you might find a guy who is charming and smooth, and you're like, I don't trust this guy for anything, right? I'm attracted to him, but boy, I am afraid of opening my mouth. I'm afraid of doing something stupid. I'm nervous. My heart is fluttering. That's not healthy. So if you don't have 6 out of 10 in comfort, fun, and attraction, there's no second date. And so as long as you're enjoying it, then you keep on going to the point 6 weeks-ish in where you could figure out, is this guy boyfriend material? Is he talking about a future? Is he escalating his efforts? Is he calling me every day? Does he want to introduce me to friends and family? Is he planning a couple weeks ahead? We're paying attention to not whether he's my husband yet, but only, is he worth putting all my energy into? And you don't want to make that decision or sleep with a guy for 4 to 6 weeks either, because once again, you don't know. Then last piece of compatibility is, you've been dating him for 2 years. Now we're asking the question, do I feel safe, heard, and understood? Right? And that and only that. Right? How does this guy treat me? How do I feel? Because everybody knows it's really easy to have a great 6 months with someone, and there's not much to fight about. It's all new. It's honeymoon phase. Honeymoon phase wears off, right? Wikipedia, Dr. Helen Fisher will tell you 18 to 36 months. So really, you don't want to make any big life decisions, right, until you figure out, okay, this is sustainable. He's not changing. I'm not changing. This is now a safe place to start building something for a future. So at the beginning, it's comfort, fun, and attraction. And later, it's safe, heard, and understood.
Yeah, those are great litmus tests. I love that. I mean, we had so much fun all the time. I think on a like 3-4 weeks in, he bought us a tandem bike, and we were just like, during COVID, and we were just seeing each other and
And you
biking and
didn't
having
have to
fun and
second
swimming.
guess. You didn't have to second guess it. So women have gotten so used to constant anxiety. And to me, a healthy relationship is the opposite of anxiety, which is a new frame for a lot of people.
Yeah, anxiety is important. Anxiety is telling you that something's up. So listening to all your emotions, I'm always telling my clients, like, all emotions are good. If you're feeling, anger or frustration or confused or anxious, that's telling you something that perhaps this isn't the right thing. I think communication is really important too. Like, are you communicating? Are you able to speak what's going on? And I love
Right?
that you say too, don't sleep with the guy. I will say that again. And that's something that I learned. I actually dated 3 Aquarius engineers simultaneously. The sort of feeling of like, if I have multiple guys, then I'm not going to just like jump to the one because I'm feeling confident. It was
Right?
so weird that 2 of them were virtual and then one was local. And Kenny and I actually didn't consummate the relationship for a year and a half. And I loved him enough and felt good enough in the relationship that the sex issue was not an issue for us. So, I don't do it until I don't say don't do it until you get a ring on your finger, but it's like
I
it doesn't
wouldn't say
resonate.
that. That's Dr. Ellen. I'm not saying that.
No, I'm saying that, but no, it wasn't the ring, but that was another issue that we had. We both had to do some healing. And so now
Sure.
that aspect of our relationship is really, really nice. But I always encourage people not to get intimate right away because it changes your perspective. And
Absolutely.
then your picker is off on it. So I'm curious, where are guys in this? So, you obviously coach lots of women, but you're also a man as well. So what are men looking for when they go on apps, and what, how can we understand where they're at?
Well, I think this is one of the bigger sources of disconnect, and it's challenging. I think we all work under the assumption that people think like we do, right? And what's bigger evidence of that than like politics, right? Where you're like you feel like people are from different planets. And John Gray did his Mars and Venus stuff, right? So I think there's an element of overall truth. There's a million exceptions, so I don't want to get too, gender role specific. But if we say that women need and deserve and can't have a great relationship unless they feel safe, heard, and understood, everybody could kind of get down with that. Like, that makes sense. Yes, I've had a lot of relationships with men who seem like quality, but I never simultaneously felt safe and heard and understood as a solid baseline all the time, right? That's why those relationships fail. Men need to feel accepted, appreciated, and admired.
Accepted, appreciated, admired. That's good.
And it doesn't mean they don't need to feel safe, heard, and understood. I don't want to, again, turn it into a
Right.
false binary, right? But if you really want to know what makes a man tick, be the first woman who's ever accepted him for who he is without trying to change him. You will literally be the first person.
Well, powerful words. And the appreciation is really big too.
And so again, that's to me one of the virtues of being a male coach for women is that I function as sort of a translator. Not that men are so mysterious that you can't understand them, but if you're ever, it's actually very much like the sex thing, right? Where women often won't sleep with a guy unless she really, really likes him. Where a guy will sleep with you if he just has the opportunity. So you'll have sex and he won't call, and you'll be like, well, why wouldn't he call? Well, it's because you gave it much greater weight than he gives it, which means he thinks differently about it. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. Maybe he's a bad person, but it doesn't mean he's a bad person. So I think just being able to understand how the opposite sex thinks. And if I were coaching men, I would do the exact same thing. I'm not saying men are perfect and women are the only ones that need fixing. That's not, I do this because men don't ask for help. There's no point in having a business centered on helping men who literally don't ask for help.
So there's no business in coaching men around
But
their level.
that's the unfortunate part of it, right? That it's why I can say in good conscience and throw my gender under the bus. You're right. There's a lot of guys who are not emotionally capable of being the man you want them to be, right? It's not your job to fix him. It's not your job to force him into therapy. It's not. It's a guy who, when you meet him, he's ready, he wants it, it's clear, and he does everything in his power to make you feel like a top priority, which is why I tell women, you are the CEO of your love life, and men are just interns applying for a job with you. And if you look at your relationship with Kenny, my guess is that you never had to beg the intern to come in.
Never. He was always the one. I was a little bit like, I'm not sure I want to commit yet, but it was COVID and we were having so much fun. And so, I mean, dating during COVID, I don't know what your work was like, but during COVID, it was very different. We were in pods and you weren't doing a lot of, face-to-face, going to coffee shops or, meeting people. And it was just, I don't know, it worked. I took a chance. I always knew that I could, it kept getting better and better and better. And I always knew that I could curtail it or leave if I wanted to. And it's just always, and that's the thing that's been so interesting about this relationship is that the relationship and the love keeps getting better. Every time I'd been in relationships before, it would be like, it was really good. You're climbing, and then it just goes downhill. So
you hit the mark perfectly, which is why when I talk about my relationship, I talk about it in the same way. I'm so much more deeply in love with my wife after 17 years together than in the first 18 months when everybody's caught up in the throes of new love and honeymoon and chemistry, because the foundation just gets better and better. Our understanding, our shorthand, our inside jokes, the trust, the things we've overcome, the things we've built together just gets stronger and stronger and stronger over the time, to the point where there's never a question about us. There's no anxiety. We are till death do us part. And that takes one huge variable, right? All that anxiety of, is this fight going to break us? I'm afraid to speak because he's going to shut down. Like all of that goes away. Life is chaotic enough, right? Especially in this day and age. Life is hard enough. You need peace in the home. And if you don't have peace with your partner, you need another partner.
Yeah, and that's why you say good relationships are easy and you should exit any relationship that feels like work.
And I want to make a huge distinction between effort and work, because sometimes people hear that and be like, no, Evan, relationships take work. My parents were together for 40 years. And I mean, I get it. I think relationships take effort, like everything in life takes effort. Showing up at your day job takes effort, and parenting takes effort. But it shouldn't feel like working in a coal mine. You shouldn't feel like you're drowning. You shouldn't feel like you're being mistreated. So yes, there's the effort of watering the garden and making sure your partner's happy, as he should do for you. But when effort turns into work and 50% of your relationship is just fighting for survival, I don't see why it's worth sustaining. It's not a real quality of life.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, contrasting my relationships. It was funny. We would always try to fix something on the outside. We would move, we'd get new rings, we'd get a new bed. We'd have this sort of like, are we committing? Are we like this recommitment on something external? And then it would be okay for a little bit, and then it wouldn't. And we'd go back into these patterns. And the sex piece was just sort of like a band-aid on everything. And it was really, I was miserable. I really was. And now it's a completely different world, and we're at completely different places in our life. We don't have, we've got kids, but they're adults, and it's really fun. So just to encourage you, do reach out to Evan. If you are a single woman and you've been saying there's no good guys out there, that's totally not true. And whatever age you are, if you might be like, I'm too old, it's too late, you're scared about the intimacy, if you're scared about the intimacy and the body image, look me up. I will help you with the weight loss. I will help you love yourself and your body so that you feel confident about dating. Because I think that's a big, a big fear that women have of like, well, what if the relationship goes really well and all of a sudden, like, I'm naked under the sheets? I hear her to say the guys are like self-conscious too. And none of us are perfect. We all have stretch marks and scars, and it's, it's a lot more than that. But so Evan, how do people reach out to you if they really want to find love?
Well, I made a special gift for your listeners. So for anybody who is stuck around till the end of this podcast, I want to thank Dr. Ellen before we close. You go to evanmarckatz.com, evanmarckatz.com /rock for Rock Your Midlife. So go to /rock and you'll be on my mailing list. You'll get a special report called 7 Massive Mistakes You're Making in Dating. And you won't even realize they're mistakes because everybody kind of does them. So it'll be a bit of an eye opener, and I'll send you free dating and relationship advice. And if you enjoy that, obviously I'd be honored to help you. You could find me on Instagram, Real Evan Marc Katz. I have a podcast called the Love You Podcast. I'm on YouTube, all the places. So my job is just give away a whole bunch of free information. And for the people who want to take it to the next level, it's really a thrill. Most of my clients are 50s, 60s, and now 70s these days. So
awesome. So do check it out. It's Evan Marc Katz /rock. Is that correct for the free gift?
evanmarckatz.com /rock for your free gift.
Okay. And all that information will be in the show notes. And I do love your Instagram. I mean, because you're really in the head of your ideal client about what they are thinking, and you are sharing the truth, and you're great on camera, very entertaining. So thank you for being here and giving such great advice. As a successful woman who is no longer single, if I was single still, I would totally knock on your door and ask for your support, because I've got a Libra moon. I love being in relationships. It's so nice. And I just have to say, I just love every night just being there with my can. And I'm really glad I found an engineer. It's not the kind of men I usually attracted and were attracted to, but gosh, he's just solid, and love is out there. So do check out Evan Marc Katz. Evan, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, Ellen. You unintentionally, you validated everything that I said today, because you're living proof.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you are looking for love in your life, you know where to go, evanmarckatz.com. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to the Rock Your Midlife podcast, your transformative sanctuary designed to guide you through self-discovery and provide the tools you need to find your purpose and navigate life authentically. Whether you want to optimize your health, boost your happiness, or deepen your self-love, this podcast is your ultimate toolkit.